Senator Warnock, thank you so much for being here with us this morning. We really appreciate it. I want to ask you about some comments that you made following the CDC cuts that we are seeing here, part of federal downsizing. You said, "I cannot think of a worse idea than firing the people who help keep us healthy and safe from disease." You continue to warn that cuts would decimate our ability to respond to diseases and cripple our scientific capacity as a nation. Senator Warnock, what is your response to those who are in agreements with these cuts, saying that this, what they're calling right sizing of the government, needs to happen?
Listen, I'm all for the government being efficient, but this is not efficiency, this is recklessness. I visited the CDC recently, and I can tell you that spending time there, I got to see firsthand the work that the CDC workers do for us. They are literally protecting our health from disease. They're keeping our air and our water safe. They are prepared for the next disease outbreak that might confront us. And I think the challenge perhaps that we are seeing in this moment is that it's easy to take for granted the bad stuff that's not happening. Nobody writes stories about that. But this war on workers and on federal workers is bad public policy, is not efficiency, is recklessness. And I'm afraid that we're going to see the consequences of this for generations to come.
We have been on the ground speaking with folks. I have been talking to former CDC workers who are kind of in this gray space, in this limbo right now. There is some hope, but there's also a lot of anger and uncertainty. Senator, are there any specific plans in the works right now to give those who are in this gray area options? And I'm specifically speaking about those CDC workers that are Georgians.
Well, you might recall that a few weeks ago when there was an announcement regarding these firings, I pressured the administration regarding some of these jobs that are critical to our health, and successfully got some of these folks rehired. But I will continue to make the case and push as hard as I can. This is certainly devastating for ordinary people. I can't tell you how many people I know, friends of mine, folks who are close to me, people in my church, who either have already gotten notice that their job has ended. I know folks who literally received sterling reviews and then within days were fired. And then I know others who go to work every day, trying to take care of us, serving, making sure that they're keeping all of us healthy. And they're literally shaking in their boots, wondering when the next shoe will drop. And in the midst of this, we've heard some very cruel statements from this administration. We heard the leader of the OMB say that I want these folks to go to work and I want them to be seen as villains. I want them shaking in their boots. What kind of rhetoric is this coming
Senator,
from the administration?
And I want to ask you about Republicans and the administration. Some of them don't agree with the cuts. Some of them, their constituents are being impacted. They're hearing about it. I mean, is there any type of bipartisan move that you could see, once again, to give those who are in this gray area options? You mentioned that you fought to get some people's jobs back. What does that look like for those who are watching this interview and want to know what are my options? What does that look like for them?
Well, what you raise is an important issue. I mean, in our system, we have 3 co-equal branches of government. And I don't understand my Republican colleagues. It takes a lot of work to get here, to sit in these seats. And I don't know why you would get here and then cede, for example, your power to engage in advise and consent. When a lot of these nominees came before us, we saw Republicans fold. We have members, colleagues of mine, some of them physicians, who know that Robert F. Kennedy is manifestly unfit and unqualified for this job. And we're seeing that play out every single day. It is deeply consequential for those who are losing their jobs right now. But I worry that it's going to be devastating for our health in the future.
And Senator, if I could just ask one more time, are there any clear options right now for those who are in that gray space? Anything that they can do?
We will continue to fight for them. And I certainly will continue to be a voice on their behalf.
Senator, if I could quickly ask you about another news story that we saw this week, tariffs, just yesterday, widespread tariffs announced. Are there any options for Georgia farmers, those who might be caught in the crosshairs of the initial shock that these tariffs could cause?
Listen, I talk to farmers all across our state all the time, and they know firsthand that these tariffs are a bad idea. They saw this in Trump 1. And yesterday's announcement, I got to tell you, is even worse than I thought it might be. This is going to hit farmers very hard. It's a tough business. The margins of profitability are already narrow. There's so much you don't control, like the weather. And this is an awful idea to add basically a tax on top of everything that's coming into the country. And because of the complexity of tariffs and trade, because this will be met by a response from our allies and our adversaries, this is bad for Georgia farmers. I have been at work, for example, working with Republicans to help Georgia farmers get their goods to international markets. And what the president and the administration has done is making that incredibly difficult, not to mention people all across our state who are already feeling the pain of prices that are too high.
Yeah.
We're going to see those prices go up even higher. Here's the thing that I assure you. I worked hard to become a member of the Finance Committee. That's the newest committee I serve on. I am the ranking member on international trade of the Finance Committee. And so I will be using my powers to raise questions on that committee regarding these tariffs, but also to your question earlier, part of what we have in Congress is oversight. And so as we look at these reckless firings, I will be using the authority that I have to raise questions about oversight, to drag these members before our committee from the administration and hold them to account for their reckless actions, to demand transparency, and then to raise our voices both in the halls of power and on the streets about what is happening in this moment. So we can't lose hope. We can't give in to those who are trying to weaponize despair.
Will you commit to working across the aisle to make that happen, Senator?
Oh, listen, I'm one of the most bipartisan senators in the Senate. That's the kind of work that I do. And it's saddening to see so many of our colleagues sort of cower in the midst of this administration. But I worked with the senators from Alabama with whom I disagree on almost everything to help Georgia farmers, for example, get their peanuts in the markets when they were dealing with the aflatoxin issue. I do a lot of bipartisan work, and I'll continue to do that while at the same time holding this administration to account.
Yeah. I want to be respectful of your time, Senator. Do I have time to ask you one more question on the budget?
Sure.
Okay. There are reports of Senate Republicans seeking to raise the debt limit by more than $5 trillion. Also reports that President Trump could sign off on this. Any conversation about that happening right now?
Listen, the agenda of the Republicans is clear. They are hurting our seniors as they trash talk Social Security and cut services there. They are threatening Medicaid. They are firing federal workers. They are undermining American credibility abroad through the incredible work that USAID does, which, by the way, is less than 1% of the budget. And they're doing all of these things in service of giving a tax cut to the wealthiest of the wealthy in our country, all the while adding trillions of dollars of debt and burden on our children. Over the next 30 years, if they are able to do what they're trying to do with this budget, will see $37 trillion. You can't even imagine what that $37 trillion of additional debt over the next 30 years on the backs of our children to give a tax cut to the wealthiest of the wealthy. These are folks who clearly work for their billionaire friends and not ordinary hardworking people, the people I know and serve and see every single day across Georgia and in my community and in my church.
Senator Warnock, we are very appreciative of your time. You're welcome to come back anytime and speak about legislation. We'd like to invite you back in for a sit down in the studio for the Georgia vote. So when you're back home, let's get it set up.
That'd be great.
All right,
Take
Senator
care.
Warnock, thank you so much. We appreciate it.